All right, man. Peace. Hey, brothers. In the aftermath of so-called St. Valentine's Day, aka the Lupercalia, the CBS Morning News had a series of very interesting segments pertaining to relationships. Things like infidelity, adultery, the difference between the gender roles, etc. And this particular segment here is in reference to infidelity. And I figured that it would be a very good backdrop for me to expound on certain sentiments that I've put forth in previous videos, like what adultery actually is, as opposed to how it's taught in today's world, in today's society, things of that nature. But please pay very close attention to how they decide that they're going to put forth a lot of their propaganda on modern day relationships and who they're trying to empower. Anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Cheating hearts. It's a side of romance less spoken of, and more plentiful, it seems, than we might like to think.
No, actually, it's not more plentiful than, quote unquote, we might like to think. In this society today, we live in a corporate world. I tell you brothers that all the time. And anytime you decide to embark on a journey with another person, whether it's frivolously or whether it's something that you're going to take seriously, you have to understand that the person that you're with, you have to constantly be appraising. You have to constantly be evaluating. And of course, you have to constantly be evaluating yourself. A lot of brothers allow themselves to conform to the quote unquote falling in love paradigm, and they end up in very bad stead. They end up mentally fractured and mentally unstable. Please understand that relationships today are almost totally dependent on the whimsicality of the female, which is why this segment is going to show you that, and which is why I told you, brothers, during the introduction, to please note who they're trying to empower and what mentality they're trying to promote.
Our cover story is reported by Tony DeCopel.
It is the only commandment that's repeated twice in the Bible, right? Once for doing it and once for thinking about it.
It's a subject as old as marriage.
Let me say this very quickly. She stated that it's the only commandment that is repeated twice. It's really not. Thou shalt not commit adultery is the act, and thou shalt not covet. It's really talking more about just the act of being with another man's woman. It's really talking about the act of envy. That's why it goes further than just the next man's wife. It goes into his property. And that is an indirect way of stating that what? The wife of the man is his property. There's so much that is misconstrued in today's modern day relationship dynamic, where they try to use the Bible as a foundation for their own personal feelings and their own personal doctrine. That is why it's important to understand the difference between words and their meaning in the ancient world and the medieval world, as opposed to how they're used today. The term wife also meant a servant. Now, your wife, as I've stated in previous videos, and people got upset, but it is what it is. A wife is a prized possession. A man is supposed to be willing to die for his wife, like Christ did the church. The scriptures tell you that explicitly, but at the same time, yes, the man is the head of the woman. That's why it's incumbent upon brothers to have the wisdom to show the woman that, yes, you are her head as you deserve to be. And if she chooses to infract upon that dynamic, she can have a nice day. Those have to be the parameters in this society, because we're not living in an upright world. We're living in a world that is turned upside down and topsy-turvy. These are things that brothers oftentimes are not taught, that they have to be taught. That's why they go into many of these so-called relationships with blinders on and end up getting caught up in a lot of unnecessary bullshit and drama that could have been avoided had they had a father who was a macrocosmic three-dimensional thinker and could have told him, look, son, she's going to try to get you to conform to an emotional dynamic. You always love with your head and not your heart. You have dudes out here straight up eating out of garbage cans, losing their minds because they allowed themselves to conform to a lesser version of themselves. When you relent to that emotional paradigm, you're always going to conform to a lesser version of yourself. The man is supposed to think with his top head. All right? You're supposed to love with your top head, not with the bottom head. That's what Valentine's Day is really all about, is getting you to conform to the whims of the woman. You know how many people out here lost their life, not just their relationship, on so-called Valentine's Day? Because that day is a demonic day and it puts demons on people. Couples who were fine on February 5th, all of a sudden February 14th, they're at each other's throats. All because the woman did not feel like you put your best foot forward to please her. This is what led them to, in the aftermath of Valentine's Day, have this segment on quote unquote infidelity. What are they really telling you? They're telling you that the relationship structure in this society is not serious. It's not based in anything serious. It's based in whimsicality and the woman's capriciousness.
And usually more taboo than divorce.
Every model of marriage has had infidelity.
Psychotherapist Esther Perel has been studying infidelity for more than a decade.
Let me say this quickly. She states that every model of marriage has infidelity. Well, that's not exactly true. The marriage model was actually based on a mechanism to pass the ownership of the woman from her father to her husband. That's what marriage was set up for. People might not like that, but it is what it is. That is where you get a lot of the practices that you have, even in the pagan version of marriage that most people in America adhere to. When the father walks his daughter down the aisle and hands her to the husband, that represents a passage of ownership from the father to the husband. That is why you have that practice. That is why the woman would have her name changed from her father's last name to her husband's last name. That represented a change of ownership. So once again, brothers, a lot of times today, the woman wants to hyphenate her last name, talking about, I'm keeping my last name. You don't have a last name. You have your father's last name. So I would never understand why a man would want to marry a female that would not take his last name. She's telling you right there that she does not plan on being with you for the long run, if you're paying very close attention. And you'll see in this photo right here, this man is putting his ring in his back pocket to imply that he's ready to move on with another chick and engage in a quote unquote affair or quote unquote cheating. The ring is representative of the worship of Saturn. Remember, the god Saturn is known as the Lord of the Rings. The ring represented ownership. Also, when you put the ring on the quote unquote ring finger, that is the finger of Heru, or Apollo, as he was known as in Greece. And I mentioned this in a previous video. The people of Kemet believed that the ring finger had a vein that led all the way from the ring finger to your heart. Remember, they worshipped the heart because they felt like the heart was the human version of the sun. They viewed the sun as being the center of the universe and the heart as being the center of the body. So as Apollo or Heru is the sun god, he's also the god of the heart. They put the ring on that finger. That was all in an allusion to the worship of the god Heru, who is also known as Cupid. That's why Cupid has the bow and arrow for love, or the heart. So all these things always go back to the quote unquote Babylonian Kemetic mystery school system. Real marriage, all it is the passage of ownership from the father to the husband. That's it. And it takes out a lot of the emotion, a lot of the confusion that you have in many of these so-called relationships. And as I told you, brothers, in previous videos, the more options that the woman has, the more likely she is to choose confusion, because they are agents of chaos. You have to help the woman. You have to help her choose order, because it's not in her nature to choose order. It's in her nature to choose confusion. And that is truly what this segment is meant to promote.
93% of Americans think that infidelity is morally wrong, and more morally wrong than cloning, than suicide, or than domestic violence.
I always wonder where many of these people get their statistics from, or where they claim to get them from. Brothers have to understand something. Many of these research reports are based in falsified data, because they already have a sentiment that they want to promote to the public, that they want to push to the public. So they're certainly not going to regard information that goes against a certain philosophy or ideology that they want to promote amongst the masses. Do I truly believe that 93% of people think that quote unquote cheating or infidelity is worse than the other things that she stated? No, I don't. I don't even really think that most people take quote unquote cheating that seriously in this day and age, because I don't think that they take relationships that seriously in this day and age, because I don't think they take themselves that seriously. It's a trickle down effect. You're not going to take your relationship with your significant other very seriously if you don't take yourself very seriously. Most people don't care about what they do to themselves, so why would they care about what they do to someone else? That's why you have to pay very close attention to how someone treats themselves. Now, this person, Esther Perel, she's a so-called psychotherapist. I believe that it states that she deals in something called psychotherapy dynamics or family planning. She's interested basically in the social engineering of the family unit. Also, please pay attention to the fact that she is a Caucasian Jew. As I've told you, brothers, in previous videos, you will find that the psychoanalytical field was created, concocted by the Caucasian Jews of Germany in the mid to late 1800s as a way to engineer society, as a way to craft society how they want, to make you think that you're crazy if you think a certain way. You're only sane if you think this way. That is how they do. They take their ideologies and they call them science.
It's an interesting location for something that is not criminal, that is totally consensual.
Well, what she just did there was she made an ideological assertion, a societal assertion that is truly not based in fact. She said that it's not criminal. Well, it's not criminal based on the society that you live in. In other societies, infidelity or quote unquote adultery is criminal and will be punished in a criminal way. But once again, pay very close attention on who they choose to concentrate on. Okay? In the scriptures, when you read the Bible, and I've stated this on this channel and certain people don't seem to understand or grasp it, adultery is when a man sleeps with another woman that is already married. It is not when he sleeps with another woman other than his so-called wife. It's when he sleeps with another woman who is already married to another man. Adultery for a woman is when she is married and she sleeps with another man. It doesn't matter whether that man is married or not. Certain people might not like that. It's okay. And yes, you can have more than one woman. Does not mean that you should, but yes, you can. That's all throughout the scriptures. I've had, since my channel started to get more subscribers, I get a lot of these liberal females who think that they know the Bible and they want to try to go back and forth. I'm not interested in going back and forth with you, particularly if you don't know basic things like that. Please don't try to comment about what the Bible says if you don't know the Bible. Number one, if you're truly a woman of God, you understand the importance of silence. That's number one. Number two, you understand the importance of honoring your husband. That's why the scriptures state that if the woman has a question, let her ask her husband at home. That is in 1 Corinthians, the 14th chapter. Okay? That's what it states explicitly. Why is that? Because when the woman learns from her husband, it builds the bond between her and her man. It doesn't say go on the internet and argue with random people that you don't know, especially if you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
The contradictions of unfaithfulness raise a question. Why do so many people cheat? These days, there's ample chance to examine the issue.
Well, the main reason why so many people quote unquote cheat is because they've been given the option to do so. There are no repercussions for their actions. That's not really a difficult question to answer. Like I saw certain brothers in the comments, they stated, oh, well, pretty much if a woman's not married, she's single. That's not true. You know who uses that type of logic? Simp dudes do, because they like to be side dudes. If a female tells you that she has a man, she doesn't have to be married to him. If she has a man, then she has a man. Then you go find a woman who doesn't have a man. That's what that amounts to. See, the problem with the so-called black community is that our people really don't respect certain conventions. And look, and let me say this quickly. We all have experienced situations where a person may have misrepresented what their relationship status was, or even in your youth where you may have decided to just do you. But when you know better, you have to do better. None of us are perfect, but when you understand that what you're doing is wrong, then you try to improve yourself. Once again, the only solution for many of the problems in the so-called black community is an understanding of what you're supposed to do and why you're supposed to do it. That's why, once again, I concentrate my channel on the so-called black man, because he's supposed to be the head. The people who have a problem with that, it's okay. I really don't care. It is what it is.
In recent weeks, we've seen President Trump deny new reports of affairs with an adult film star.
And that shit was so ridiculous. It's so silly. All he did was lay down with a harlot, with a concubine. But in this society, you know, they have to act like they're aghast at prostitution. That's why I've already stated I have no idea why prostitution is illegal in this society for. They state that the woman could do what she wants with her body. So legalize prostitution. The reason why they won't do that is because they don't want the man to have the ability to satisfy or satiate his sexual urges without having to pay the piper of being run through the mill of the average so-called female in America. The vast majority of them, to be quite honest with you, are borderline hoes and prostitutes anyway. Okay? And certain people might get mad at that. It's all right. It's okay. If you know that you're a female who operates on a high level, you shouldn't be offended. If you're offended, it's probably because you're a damn hoe. I mean, it is what it is. You should know the difference between what you are as opposed to what I'm speaking about.
And a Playboy model in 2006.
I was engaged in a consensual relationship with a woman who wasn't my wife.
Whatever. And you also are most likely engaged with a series of young boys and men, as many of you top-level politicians are, allegedly.
And Missouri Governor Eric Greitens has acknowledged an affair with his hairdresser.
And it's a mistake for which I am deeply sorry.
Just another concubine. Moving on.
Sorry.
I've had
You've had some strange dick. Spit it out. Spit it out like you spit out that other stuff, all right? Just knock it off. What are you hesitating for? Don't act like you can't say it now. Strange dick.
an extramarital affair.
While Nashville Mayor Megan Barry has apologized for sleeping with her bodyguard.
And
Yeah, I bet he got the hell out of your body, didn't he? Who was it, Kevin Costner?
I am deeply sorry for that.
Which makes her part of a trend.
There they go with that micro cheating. You see that? You see, see how she look at the phone with her finger over her lips? By the way, brothers, the index finger is the finger for Jupiter. And when you see that gesture right there with the index finger over the lips, I believe I brought this out before, that is for Hippocrates or Heru. As a symbol that's used oftentimes today by a lot of MK assets. For example, you might see Rihanna and a lot of the other MK assets that are under the beta programming. They'll take photographs with that sign, and they'll have the shush tattooed on their index finger. You can look that up. I believe like Lindsay Lohan, the singer from Britain, Lily Allen, as well as Rihanna and many others, they have that shush tattoo on their index finger because they're all part of the programming.
Trend. According to a survey by the Kinsey Institute
The Kinsey Institute. Brothers, for those of you who don't know, Alfred Kinsey is one of the most influential men of the 20th century. I'm sure many of you brothers have heard of him already. He basically was a pedophile and a sexual degenerate who was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation to normalize sexually degenerate behavior. One of the things that Alfred Kinsey liked to do was take objects and stuff them up his urethra. For those of you who don't know what a urethra is, that's the hole in the penis that you piss and ejaculate out of. He liked to take objects and shove them up that. That is how much of a degenerate this man was. And guess who funded his research? The Rockefeller Foundation. Okay? The Rockefeller Foundation is the organization that pretty much has established what people should be educated on over the last 100+ years. They also were funding Miss Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood at the same time as they were funding Mr. Alfred Kinsey. The Kinsey Institute is pretty much the forerunner of NAMBLA, the National Association of Man-Boy Love, or whatever the acronym stands for. You can look it up. Basically a Pan organization. Remember, Pan was the god of pederasty, or love between man and boy. Pan was the goat god, known today as the Baphomet. Okay? Some of the things that Alfred Kinsey liked to do in his quote-unquote experiments, he would pay fathers to have sex with their children. He would pay random men to rape children on camera, and he would time it with a stopwatch. He would survey prisoners who were incarcerated for sex crimes, and he would take the data from what their sexual preferences were, and he would act as if he was surveying regular men. And he was stating in his findings that the average man likes to rape a woman, or the average man likes to have sex with a child, and he would not tell the people who were reviewing his surveys or his quote unquote research that he was using test subjects that were incarcerated for sex crimes. He liked to, he advocated his employees at the Kinsey Institute to get involved in pansexuality and open marriages. He was an advocate of a Nazi, a very renowned Nazi pedophile, last name von Balusek. I can't remember his first name. You brothers could look it up. Last name spelled B as in boy, Allusek. Von Balusek. And the funny thing is that when the Judiciary Committee found out that Alfred Kinsey had all this information on what von Balusek was doing, they asked him how come he didn't report it, but they would not arrest Alfred Kinsey for that. Okay? This is the type of degenerate shit that was used to create a sense of normality around sexual degeneracy. He was the person, Alfred Kinsey, by the way, he was the person who inspired Hugh Hefner, who, as we all know, is one of the top MK programmers from the 1950s onward. Helped to program people like Marilyn Monroe, etc. And forming the quote-unquote Playboy Mansion. He also was the person who inspired the alterations in abortion legality, lowering the age of consent to sex, inspired the gay rights movement, etc. He was all over the place, Alfred Kinsey. Big demon, big devil. All right, this is the Kinsey Institute. This is who they're citing. This is who they're citing as a reputable source on normal sexual behavior. Now, Alfred Kinsey, when you do any research on him, any background research, he came from a household where his father was a very ardent Methodist. I believe that his father was a Methodist, very, very heavily into religion. And Alfred Kinsey had to battle with a lot of homoerotic or homosexual urges from his youth. Why is that? Because he had that demon on him from young. And to be quite frank with you, it would not surprise me if he was the victim of molestation. All right? It's just my opinion. It would not shock me at all. And he spent most of his adult life trying to invalidate quote-unquote religion and the prohibitions that were put on people and their sexual conduct by the Bible, by, of course, falsifying a lot of data on human behavior and hoping to alter it. And he did a very good job of it. As I stated, he was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. And many of the things that we view today as average sexual behavior or acceptable sexual behavior is predicated off of his findings. Okay? He had someone who worked for him or with him named Paul Gerhardt. You can look him up. First name Paul, last name, I believe, if I remember correctly, it's spelled Gerhard, or maybe another letter in there, but I believe it's Gerhard, who admitted that the Kinsey Institute is basically just, or was basically just, a forerunner for NAMBLA, which, as I stated, stands for the National Association of Man-Boy Love. Right? Something along those lines. But it's basically an organized group that has congressional representation, that has a lobby in Washington, that is meant to convey the notion that grown men having sex with little boys is okay and that it's normal. And as I stated earlier, Alfred Kinsey used to pay men to rape children on camera as young as 2 months old. Okay?
At Indiana University, female philanderers are catching up with their male counterparts.
Well, first off, female quote-unquote philanderers are not catching up with their male counterparts. Okay? There's no such thing as catching up when it comes to another party or another gender in quote-unquote philandering. What the rise in quote-unquote female cheating represents is the rise in freedom that the modern-day female has. Please understand that at one time, the female was limited in regards to her ability to make money. She was also limited in her actions, as near as, a few hundred years ago. All across the world, if the woman was found to be a quote-unquote adulteress, she'd be killed. And in many parts of the world, if a woman is found to be a quote-unquote adulteress, she's still killed. Many females, if they don't subscribe to arranged marriage, they're killed. Every once in a while, you read a story out of Pakistan or India of a female who decides that she's not going to marry who her parents tell her to marry, and they will accompany the groom in killing her. They will find her and they'll stone her. Why do they do that? Because in order for the father to maintain the honor of the family, he has to kill the daughter, because if he promised the daughter to the family of the groom and she tries to renege, what that tells the entire village, the entire community, is that his word is not an honorable word. So you can no longer do dealings with him because he raised a daughter that is dishonorable. So he has to kill the daughter in order to get his honor back. Now, we live in, basically in America, a society that's based around the veneration of the mother goddess. So that dynamic is no longer pertinent. The female could do what she wants, which is why you have a divorce rate that is so high, a single mother rate that is so high, an abortion rate that is so high. The female in this society is taught to embrace her inner Kali Ma, right? The mother goddess destroyer. That, by the way, is what abortion has always been about. Is the worship of Baal, the worship of Kali. You sacrifice the infant to Baal. That is why they have pushed and promoted abortion from the late 70s. They need the blood of the aborted babies to keep America going, just like they felt like they needed to kill all the children in ancient Carthage or ancient Phoenicia, etc. They kill the children because they feel like the blood of the child is what's going to keep the society going. That is one of the main reasons why spiritually they have authorized and promoted abortion and claim that it is the woman's right, it's her body, etc. It's truly asinine. That method of thinking is really akin to you driving a car as a man and there's somebody else in your vehicle and you decide that you want to commit suicide, and it's okay for you to take that person with you because they're in your car. Now, truly, if the woman was so concerned about having the power over her body, then she would have not had unprotected sex in the first place. And in a truly orderly society, the woman would only have sex with her husband, which is what was set up and what was established in the scriptures. That's why it was set up like that. And that is why your wife or your wife-to-be is supposed to be a virgin. She's not supposed to be some woman who's been ran through like the damn Indy 500. Everybody done ran through the broad. You know, the baby come out of her vagina and it got this nigga's ears, it got that dude's hair, it got your eyes. You know, damn baby named Frankenstein Johnson.
For the first time on record.
Of course it is a form of emancipation. Leaving the potential of being able to go, the potential of not having to accept it. I mean, part of why families have been preserved is because women made the compromise more than men.
Now, did you hear what she stated? This is why I tell you, brothers, to pay very close attention to how they try to glamorize an act that they would demonize if men were doing it. They need to make it palatable for the masses that the female is now pretty much a whore, that she has accepted the whore archetype, the mother of Babylon archetype in this society. So they have to try to couch it and cover it in positive terms in a way where it would be deemed as acceptable. Well, the woman is going out and sleeping with various men, even though she has gotten a man to marry her, because she's trying to feel free again. She's trying to find herself. All that is fine. If you're trying to find yourself, then don't get married. That's how that goes. That is why, once again, we always go back to the same theme. Brothers, make sure that you understand who you're committing to and who you think is committing to you. Because this society is set up to be a string of traps and stumbling blocks. Okay? This is why they have a female so-called psychotherapist. When you look up this female, she's also an actress. Please keep that in mind. She's a trained actress. She's also trained as a psychotherapist, meaning her job is to make you think that you're wrong for not believing what she believes. That's it. So these people basically are modern day witches. When you hear somebody is a psychotherapist, a psychoanalyst, things of that nature, they have an understanding of how to manipulate the human brain, the human psyche, so that they can make you think what they want you to think. That is why one of the things that they're taught is hypnosis, the power of mental suggestion. You see what she's doing right here? She's trying to create a cult of personality for herself.
Man, never been more.
In a series of massively popular TED Talks,
And never.
Hey, she's doing a TED Talk. Now remember, the last person that we saw who was doing a TED Talk was who? It was that guy, Katz. His first name is skipping my mind. Last name is Katz. Remember I did a video called All Men Must Be Programmed to Worship Women? And it had that coke head, amphetamine addicted looking dude, allegedly addicted looking dude, last name Katz, who also was doing TED Talks to tell men that that everything basically is their fault. We see it also with this female right here. Once again, there is an attack on the masculine principle in this society. And you so-called black men, you are going to be the first one that they attack. Every time that you see a story be reported on a woman getting raped, assaulted, being the victim of sexual harassment, sexual abuse, etc., they're always going to show, if they can, a black man's face. If they can.
Has infidelity exacted such a psychological toll?
a buzzed about podcast, and her latest book, The State of Affairs, Perel is asking us to rethink our attitude about infidelity.
To think about them just as a good person and a bad person does not help the millions of people who are experiencing it.
Now, do you understand what she's doing right there? She's trying to take away any culpability in the action. She wants you to feel some type of sympathy with the person's mentality, how they were quote unquote tortured into feeling like they had to lash out at this restricting convention of quote unquote marriage. She wants you to, she wants to make the person who quote unquote cheats a sympathetic figure. And she's really talking more about the woman. That's why she said that it's the woman that has held the family together. No, what holds the family together is proper order and people knowing their role in doing it. If the man had decided to leave, the family would not be together in the same way if the woman decided to leave. It takes two and the children to be a unified family. That's how that goes. You cannot have a unit if any one of the parties chooses to leave or move along. But once again, this segment here is about the glorification of the feminine principle and how it's okay for the female to do whatever she wants, even if she claims that she wanted to be married at some point.
The children, the friends, the family, I mean, it's not the lovers.
I can't blame him and I can't blame me. I mean,
No, in other words, you know that you were the one who was in the wrong. When she says, I can't blame him and I can't blame me, believe me, if it was his fault, she would have said, I blame him. Well, she says, I can't blame him and I can't blame me. That means that it's my fault, but look, I just had to get some new dick in my life.
it's 50-50. We just didn't like each other. We got to a point that we just didn't like each other anymore.
Christy is a mother of two.
I wonder why that was. You know, some of these people, they state that we just grew apart. We did not like each other anymore. Oftentimes that's based in the mentality that every day is supposed to be an exciting day. I tell you brothers this all the time. The female that actually should be considered in a serious way is a female who can handle monotony. If the female cannot handle monotony, then she cannot be considered in a serious way. You can have fun with her. She could be a concubine maybe if she's not too negative. But if she cannot handle monotony, then she cannot be considered in a serious way, because after a while, every day is going to blend into the next. When you look up at your clock, the clock moves the same way every day. Accepting monotony is what's known as maturity, is what's known as being an adult. If you don't understand that days are going to start to blend into each other and every day is not going to feel like an adventure, if you can't grasp that, then you're not ready to be with someone. You're not ready to share your life with someone. You need to go off and jump out of planes and climb up mountains and walk through the woods or whatever the fuck you need to do. And I don't really even blame her. I blame the guy who married her. He probably got sucked into some dumb shit.
Who asked that we not use her real name or reveal where she lives.
I don't know why she doesn't want her to have her name revealed for. What is she embarrassed about? What could she be embarrassed about? She made her decision. You move on, you live with it.
But allowed us to show her face.
I was not looking for love, was not looking to leave my husband, was just looking
for some new dick. Just say what you're looking for. Just be real. You're looking for some new dick. You wasn't looking to leave your man. You wasn't looking for love. You were looking for some new rod in your life. You wanted some new spark. That's all. You got tired of him because, he was going to the job at the factory every day, coming home at the same time, smelling the same, wanting the same thing to eat, watching the same TV shows, and you got mad at him because you got tired of the monotony. So you started little silly arguments. He started to get upset by the fact that you were starting little silly arguments, and that's what made you, quote unquote, grow apart. That's how that went.
For companionship.
Like many women,
Companionship, my ass. You were looking for some new dick.
and she resolved to stay in an unhappy marriage for the sake of her kids.
Well, what did the man choose to do when he stayed in an unhappy marriage? Does he deserve credit for staying for the sake of the kids, or it just doesn't matter? It's all about her because she wasn't, quote unquote, happy. Brothers, if the future of the world was dependent on the happiness of a woman, Armageddon would be here tomorrow. The last thing that you should be worried about if you want to keep your own mind stable is how happy the woman is. You have to just make sure that you're conducting yourself in an upright way according to your standards and being respectful like how you're supposed to be. You can't get caught up in the happiness of the woman because next thing you know, you become a servant. You can't have that. And then they'll still end up doing some craziness and some nonsense. That's why so many of these females are strung out on prescription meds, because they cannot find happiness anywhere, because this society has been so deculturalized. It has told the female that life should just be about what she wants. In a real society, a woman is raised to understand how important her role is, what she needs to be doing, and how her role is so essential that she should find happiness in it. A real woman is not running out here looking for adventures all the damn time. Knew this and knew that Thelma and Louise shit. Hey, remember how the movie Thelma and Louise ended? Right? Remember they started, they wanted to go out partying and all that. It ended with them two bros driving off a cliff.
Until one night, a few years ago, when she also resolved to stray.
I was sitting on the bed, and he said something to me very disrespectful, very hurtful.
Yeah, he said something very disrespectful, very hurtful, most likely because you said something to him first, because you was bored and tired of your marriage. Go ahead.
I don't remember what,
You remember what it was. He said, he said, if you're not going to cook me pancakes in the morning, then take your pancake ass out of my bed. He said something like that.
I just snapped. I pulled my phone out, and I went to my
phone and I Googled dick. D-I-C-K, all caps. That's what you did.
My phone, and I said, women looking for
dick.
Or men to have affairs with.
She ended up on Ashley Madison, a website that helps men and women pursue what's known as married dating. Yes, married dating. Who came up with this term?
I think it's been around a long time.
Ruben Buell is the president of Ashley Madison's parent company, Ruby Life. After a damaging leak of usernames in 2015, he says the site is booming.
I'm sure it is booming. People just out here doing them. See, this is one of the main reasons why they like to demonize the Middle East so much. Because in the Middle East and many of these other countries in that area, really going even down into Africa, etc., they make sure that they create penalties for people who decide that they're just going to do whatever they feel like doing, because they understand that has a ripple effect. When people just do whatever they feel like doing at that moment, that inspires others to do what they feel like doing. And next thing you know, you have no order. Like you have here in America, there's no order here.
With 20,000,
at least in regards to interpersonal rapport and relationships.
1,000 new members a day.
A lot of this came out of singles dating, where you were on single sites, but 30+% of the people on the site were married. So somebody took a category and created Ashley Madison.
It almost sounds like you felt, like a teenager again.
Yes.
Of course she did. What do I tell you brothers all the time, man? There's no difference between a woman 35, 40 years old and a little girl 14, 15 years old, other than how many penises she's had and how long she's been on the earth. The same things excite them. They love the They love the potential to be a part of quote unquote fun. Hey, what was the most popular song, or what are the most popular songs of the 80s? Girls just want to have fun. I didn't say that. No. One of these female singers sung that. I think it was Madonna or Cyndi Lauper. One of these little white bros from the 80s sang that shit. Right? They said that. Girls just want to have fun. So that's why the interviewer was even compelled to say that she wanted to engage in this little thrill because it made her feel young again.
I got giddy, I fell for him. I really did. We actually were calling each other girlfriend and boyfriend, even though we were married. He was my boyfriend, I was his girlfriend.
You see that? It took her right back to high school where she could feel like a little girl again. Man probably had this bitch wearing his football Letterman's jacket and shit. She coming home to her husband with the next man's football Letterman jacket on.
What was it like after all those years of not having any to having some again?
Wow.
Yeah, I bet. Man. Damn husband probably said, wow, you look like you've been having a good time. She said, oh, if you only knew the half. Husband said, look at this shit. I give you an inch, you take a yard. She said, oh, you have no idea how many inches I've been taking.
But sex is far from the only reason that people cheat, says Esther Perel. And cheating doesn't always mean a troubled relationship either.
Affairs happen in good marriages, in bad marriages, young, old, straight, gay, you name it. When people go to look elsewhere.
Look at this dude's face. Even this dude's face, like, look at this silly bitch. And this is the same guy who's married to a colleague at CBS. He's thinking to himself, what's my bitch doing right now? Let me text her.
Elsewhere, they're not so much wanting to leave the person that they are with, that they want to leave the person that they have become.
They want to go back to who they might have been.
Or never were and never got to explore.
Now, when she's talking all this shit, she's talking about women. She's not talking about men. She's not talking about men. All this, she's trying to give you some insight into the mind of the female. That's why I tell you, brothers, that, when you pay attention to the female, the woman, she hits certain milestones. Like when she gets around 30, she starts to evaluate her life. She wants to see if the guy that she's with, the job that she has, is up to par with her quote unquote standards or where she feels like she should be in life. And if she doesn't feel like that, no matter how quote unquote good the job is or how good the man is, she'll try to end both of those and then start something over. Then when they get to 35 to 45, that is a very tumultuous time period for them because that's when they start to lose their looks. Like at the very beginning of starting to lose their looks. And, if they're not married, that is very depressing for them. A lot of times they try to throw themselves at younger men, so on and so forth, to see if they quote unquote still have it. And then 45, that's when they really start to lose their looks. And then that's when they finally start to mature. But all these little time periods, this society spends so much time trying to evaluate the man and midlife crisis. They don't evaluate these things about the woman. And therefore, a lot of these guys, they go into these quote unquote relationships with these blinders on and end up assed out.
Worldwide, the one word that people would keep coming back to when I would say, what is it you're feeling? Alive.
I was so depressed I didn't want to get out of bed every day.
Well, first off, bitch, we got to turn the lamp on because I can't see your face. What's the problem?
I had to because somebody had to in the house and I was it.
And now?
Oh no, I like getting up, yeah. I have something to look forward to.
Yeah, some new dick.
Daphne, who did not want us to use her real name or show her face, never thought she'd have an affair. The first 22 years of her marriage were good, she says, but her husband's Alzheimer's changed everything.
I guess so much for better or for worse, huh? For sickness and health. You say, look, when that Alzheimer's kicked in, he forgot how to have sex with me. He forgot everything. He even forgot how to have sex with me. So I said, fuck it.
The man that I stood up in front of everybody and promised to love forever no longer exists.
Well, I assumed that was part of the vows that you took. Allegedly.
Daphne is committed to caring for the man she married for the rest of his life. But the
Yeah, right. Until she put that pillow over his damn face.
56-year-old decided in order to live her life, she needed to date again.
Yep, there go that laptop. Hey, what I tell you, brother? That laptop and that phone, Whew, goodness sakes. That's what was that skit that Justin Timberlake had on Saturday Night Live back in the day? Dick in a box. That's what the laptop and the tablet and the phone is right now, man. For everybody, not even just the woman. No, the man too. You got coochie right at your fingertips.
6 months ago, she met her boyfriend on Ashley Madison.
How did your moral thinking change? It's not me. Well, now it is.
What moral thinking? That's the last thing she was thinking about. She was thinking about oral thinking, not moral thinking.
I wasn't going to be able to continue taking care of my husband if I didn't have some fun.
How do you mean?
Well,
What do you mean, how she mean? She mean that if she's not getting any dick, he's not going to get any care. That's what that mean.
because I was impatient with him. I cried. I was just angry.
Yeah, you need some dick in your life.
And now I'm much more patient with him. I don't get angry. I'm a better wife now than I was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what busting a few nuts would do for you.
And consider this. Infidelity may just be nature's way.
You can love more than...
Now, did you hear that? He said infidelity may just be nature's way. This is basically the mainstream news media's method of instructing you, informing you, particularly a lot of you young brothers out there, that do not expect much from many of these serious relationships, because there's going to be an attempt to program the masses into spouse swapping, wife swapping, husband swapping, so on and so forth. Once again, brothers, you love with your head. You don't love with your heart. You always have to make sure that you keep the Most High first, so that you're not one of these guys who ends up on the news having stabbed up your wife, stabbed up your kids, and all this other craziness. All right? Rough things are going to happen, but you have to make sure that you keep a clear head to the best of your ability.
more than one person, bottom line.
But why? Why would that be?
Let me rewind back what this broad said.
That'd be helpful.
Wife now than I was.
And consider this. Infidelity may just be nature's way.
You can love more than one person, bottom line.
Now, did you hear what she stated? Brothers, I tell you this all the time. The so-called feminist movement, or the female movement, is not really based on females' rights. It's just based on coveting what the man has always been able to do. The woman wants to do what the man has always been able to do. So when she says that you could love more than one person, what she's really referring to is it's okay for the woman to have multiple men. And to be quite frank with you, most of these modern day females can barely handle one man. So she's telling you point blank what I've been telling you, to make sure that you understand the importance of maintaining the context in the relationship that you're in. All right? Make sure that you keep your head on straight, because many of these females are embracing those sentiments, and in a very willy-nilly way. So don't get caught out there. Oh, I can't believe he did this to me. I can't. Hey, it is what it is. You make sure that you have your ducks in a row. You should have your own living situation in order, your job or your career in order to the best of your ability, so that when these type of things come to the forefront or are exposed or revealed, it's not a shock for you. Like in the film She Hate Me, Anthony Mackie's character, he walked in on his wife, played by Kerry Washington, or his fiancée, having lesbian sex. And he just had a total mental breakdown.
But why? Why would that be helpful to survival?
Well, I wondered that too, and so I studied adultery in 42 cultures.
What do they all have in common?
They all fall in love, they all marry, and they all are adulterers.
Well, first off, this bitch is lying. She didn't study adultery in 42 cultures. What she studied was men who had more than one woman in 42 cultures. Because it's only in the Caucasian culture, quote unquote, where they believe that a man cannot have more than one wife. So this is what I mean when I say that they take terms like adultery and they have created their own definition for those terms. And they'll have fake ass scientists like this misappropriating and misapplying terms like adultery to make you think that these other cultures are practicing adultery, when in fact all they're doing is practicing the facet or the aspect of male-female relations known as having more than one wife. Because that's the main thing. They want to normalize having multiple partners for women, but they want to make men think that they cannot have more than one woman. They want to demonize the man for things that they want to glorify the woman for. So that's one of the reasons why I make these videos, so that brothers are aware of what's going on around them. Very, very important. Because this female here is another witch. She's not really a scientist. She's a witch. Her job is to cast a spell on society. That's her job. Once again, that's why she is an employee of the Kinsey Institute. Please understand what the Kinsey Institute actually is about. As has already been stated, it was funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. Mr. Alfred Kinsey was a sexual predator. He was also a sexual degenerate. So that's all this is really about. She's not going to present any information that goes against what her spiel is meant to be about. That is how the modern day education system is run. When they dig in the ground, whatever they find that goes along with their propaganda, they put in one box. Whatever goes against it, they put in another box, and they put that box in the basement.
Are adulterous. Not everybody's adulterous, but in every single culture that I've looked at, there's some people who are adulterous, which may...
No, in every single culture that you've looked at, there have been men that were dealing with more than one woman that had multiple wives. That's what you observe, ma'am.
Which made me have to wonder why.
Helen Fisher is a biological anthropologist at the Kinsey Institute.
They just make up terms for these people.
Let's go back a million years. A man has one wife and has 2 children. But if he occasionally goes over the hill and sleeps with another woman and has 2 extra children, he's doubled the amount of DNA he is sent into tomorrow.
Well, that's not the reason for quote-unquote adultery, because that's not adultery. That's a man having more than one wife. Once again, brothers, what they do is they take these terms and they give them a new definition so that they can start a new sentiment in society. That's what it's about. Also, Alfred Kinsey was he was a zoologist and an entomologist. Entomology is the study of insects. So, oftentimes many of these bioanthropologists and these sexologists, he also was classified as a sexologist. They try to correlate the sexual habits of animals with people, not understanding that the sexual habits of both animals and people are totally predicated off of what is necessary to keep a functional society going. The human society is far more complex than any other society in the animal kingdom. And there are some complex societies in the animal kingdom, but nothing approximates the human society. So that's why it's so difficult and really unreasonable to compare.
So adultery made it more likely that any given gene pool would continue.
Yes.
But if it's all...
Well, it's not adultery once again. Getting more than one wife or having more than one wife also would allow the man to get a lot of the ancestral inheritance rights of the daughter if her father was to pass down land to her. So that was another reason why a man would have more than one woman. It would allow him to gain ancestral inheritance lands or rights to various properties.
Also natural.
And also, for example, it could also be used as a matter of negotiation or diplomacy. Like King Solomon, when you read 1 Kings 11th chapter, he married women of the different nations to build leagues with these kings of the other nations. Now, King Solomon went off. Why? Because he started to worship the gods of these women. And you're not supposed to do that. Adam started to worship the god of Eve. And so on and so forth. Samson, he hearkened unto Delilah. That is why these men went off. The woman is not supposed to lead you spiritually. That's a no-no. And I'm sure that some of the females listening to my channel or to this video are not going to like that. It is what it is. The woman is not supposed to be teaching the Bible.
You might wonder, why does it have the power to cause so much pain?
It is the ultimate breach of the romantic ideal.
To a degree, I agree with that. And that is why I make videos trying to explain the concept of quote-unquote falling in love. That's like any other drug. You can use things for your benefit. You can also use things for your detriment. You have certain drugs that can be used to relieve pain, but if you abuse those drugs, it can lead to your death. It's the same thing with love. Love brings balance and support to your life. It provides wellness for you mentally. But if you abuse it, if you put it too high on a pedestal, it can bring fragility to your mind. It can lead to a person wanting to kill themselves, kill the other person, so on and so forth. That is what being in love is about. In love is abuse. Love is proper use. So everything has to be done according to moderation. Being in love has no moderation. It has no boundaries. That is why many of these modern day liberal females like to push for it, because when you're dealing with a concept that has no boundaries, they can make it up as they go along. Okay? When you have a concept that has boundaries, then you say, okay, now we're going past propriety. We have to reel this back in so that we understand that what's going on is beneficial for everyone involved. Anytime you're dealing in a relationship, whether it's with someone of the opposite sex, a friend, a family member, it has to be beneficial for both people. You have to know why you're doing what you're doing. If you get to a point where you're with someone and you don't know why, it's most likely that's an unhealthy relationship. Okay? So when people fall, quote unquote, fall in love, they're heading into depths where they're out of control. Sometimes people try to regain control by doing drastic things.
It is the shattering of the grand ambition of love.
To be clear, Perel does not recommend infidelity.
Yeah, right. She just spent the whole damn segment trying to explain it. The reason why she doesn't recommend it is because she cannot explicitly state that she recommends it. Because then she'll be outing herself as what she is, that being an agent of chaos.
But she does call for empathy.
Are those two men's hands right there? Look at this shit. Those are two men's hands and they trying to act like it's not.
We do not claim moral superiority just because we haven't cheated, when we have been neglecting, when we've been married to our jobs, married to the bottle, and just because we haven't had sex with somebody else, we think we are the mature and the committed and the superior. This is gotta change.
Now, she just said that she doesn't recommend quote unquote infidelity, but she just went on a spiel trying to normalize it. She said, well, just because you're married to your job, married to the bottle, you didn't sleep with someone else, so you think that you're more mature than someone who has slept with someone else. Well, there are different degrees of infractions, as anyone knows. If you go and you steal a candy bar, it's different from stealing another person's child. Okay? You can't go into the courtroom and say, well, Your Honor, what's the difference? It's still stealing. There are degrees of infractions. For someone to decide that they're going to open themselves up for another person, particularly when they're not supposed to, when they have not explained themselves properly to the person that they're supposed to be in a quote unquote committed relationship with, then yes, that does bear far more of an infraction than someone who just happens to be addicted to work, because you can talk through that. When someone decides that they're going to go, as particularly a female, which is what this segment's really about, trying to promote the female doing that. When a female decides that she's going to do that, she's basically telling the man that she's not someone to be taken seriously. Now, I'm sure that certain females will feel the same way about the man, but that's part of the social engineering which has trained the female to believe that the man cannot have more than one woman. That's one of the main reasons why relationships in this society tend not to be a success. Because they want to equalize the man and the woman. The man and the woman are not equal. They're not the same. People will not like that. I don't care. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Or we will never have an honest conversation about this.
Christy, for her part, was forced into an honest conversation with her husband.
Yeah, it's the first time the bitch been honest in 20 plus years.
After he read text messages from her lover.
So he came and he says to me, I see everything that you're writing. I didn't deny it. I'm like, yep, and I want a divorce. It was pretty much like that.
Wow.
No tear, nothing. Not on his end, not on mine. I don't condone what I did. I'm not saying for anybody to go out and just do that, but I'm telling you that's my story.
Oh, no, that's not your story. That's what worked for you. That's really what you wanted to say. She's the second person who states that in this segment that she does not, quote unquote, advocate for or condone, quote unquote, infidelity. But you condone it without overtly condoning it. You're saying that it worked for you. Long story short, you were bored with the first guy. You wore down your husband with negative energy until he was ready. He was as ready to see you leave as you were ready to leave. So it is what it is.
which cleared the way for Christy and her now divorced boyfriend to no longer hide their secret. Last year in Las Vegas, they were married.
How did it feel saying those vows again?
Great. You know, it was like, and I know it's forever. I know it.
Whatever. Forever is until he decides that he's going to go back on that website. Why would you want to settle down with someone that you met on a cheating website? Does that make any sense?
I know it's forever.
But anyway, that's the video on quote unquote infidelity. And as I stated in another video, you get what you deserve. All right. We all get what we deserve because we get what we allow. When we see things coming and we do nothing about it, we get what we deserve. We get what we allow. So once again, brothers, make sure that you pay very close attention to who you're with, why you're with them, and what you plan on doing with them. But anyway, peace.